I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Lovely day in New York City. Fashion Week is here. Art Week is here, I think. Andrew Kuo is here.
Peach Week is not here. Peaches are over.
You are no longer able to crash out at the farmer's market ODing on stone fruit.
My peach dealer has run dry, man. Now we're getting squashes, apples, pears. Pretty good. Yo, I'm full of peaches. I've had my peach season, man. Rest in peace. Rest in peach.
I ran into someone while traipsing around New York City, and they're like, it's supposed to be a basketball podcast, and all you talk about is stone fruit.
Ooh, they log off at 1 hour, man. Ooh, way to out
like, look,
yourself, stranger.
Look, you got an hour of stone fruit talk, Andrew breaking down the farmer's market, and then you get into all the basketball news you can handle for a full 1 hour. Also, it's not basketball season. What do you need?
Oh, I know. We're not talking about football. We're not talking about tennis. Quick, who won the U.S. Open?
Don't know.
No one does. It's over. The finals happened.
I don't know. It's kind of like a eerie kind of parallel to the last NBA season where no one knows, was there even a finals? Who can say?
Vacant on the trophy. It's just like a blank spot.
Yeah, you get 2 championships next year.
On your trophy of Fashion Week, what are you etching in this year?
I went to the Kalina Strada show, friend of the pod. She's been a guest.
Seems
Show
like
was
that's
very
the only
cool.
show we go to.
That's the only show I go to anymore. I used to go to a bunch.
Hmm.
Wait, why did a bunch of balloons just go across the screen? Anyway, disregard, folks. The Kalina Strada show was outside in the East Village. Really nice day. Featured some models tumbling around on the ground. Themes that were eco-centric as usual. I thought it was great. Saw some of our friends. Sam Hine was there. The GQ crew. Ella Emhoff in the building. I don't know the social security where the Secret Service was hiding out, but they must have been around there somewhere. And then she had an after party which featured square dancing and a performance by Come Girl 8, and that's a punk group. And that was kind of my fashion week. How about you?
Well, I have more questions. Did you square dance?
No, but they did the square dancing setup where there was a instructor who went there and told people what to do. And then they would go over all the steps without music several times over. And then they did 1 or 2 songs. So it was probably at 45 minutes to an hour of square dancing, but most of the time was dedicated to people learning how to do the dips and the spins and so forth. But people seem to have a really good time and seem to be part of this Western theme that everyone wants to claim is sweeping through New York City, turning this thriving metropolis into a podunk cowtown.
Have you ever square danced before in your life?
In middle school.
Same.
It was like a gym class thing, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, physical education. There is a swath of people who enjoy music that teaches you how to dance. So it's from the now canceled R. Kelly, Step in the Name of Love, kind of lets you participate with him. Square dancing never really hit hard. And this begs the question that we're always trying to get to the bottom of. The gatekeepers always want to tell us New York is turning into a cowboy state. But it's sort of like the doomsday clock. It's always seconds before midnight, cowboy midnight, but it never hits.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place in South Williamsburg that opened up No, actually, it's North Williamsburg. It's where the Kinfolk spot used to be. You know, where a
Which
lot of our friends worked. Went
Yep.
there many a time. Actually, there was a little Cookies Hoops pop up shop in the corner Kinfolk. But this, I believe, is the larger like club space that at one point was owned by Vice or a partnership with Vice, and now it's a like country western themed bar. The Kalina party also had a mechanical bull, and I saw another Fashion Week party had a mechanical bull, or someone was at a place with a mechanical bull during Fashion Week. So, as you said, this ever rising current that's going to
Mhm.
turn this city into a place where there's going to be, I guess, showdowns and duels, gunslinging on the corners, people walking around with spurs jangling. We're always on the horizon of that for sure.
Do you think Fashion Week as a whole, like, there's always a section of it that dips their toe into Western culture? I just think of like Matthew Barney videos and the Cream Master videos. Like that was a constant theme, so it's always a little cool, right? Um, but during every Fashion Week, you can kind of find somebody who has embraced the West.
Yeah, I think that's true. I feel like, well, there's certain themes that just recycle over and over and over and over, and that's one of them. And
But yeah,
same with like goth, same with athleisure. None of
yeah.
those things will ever be fully out. Someone's always going to go back and embrace them.
Which ones like don't hit? Like has a high end brand or an edgy brand ever done Grateful Dead stuff? Or like I'm trying to think about third rail subcultures, like Wild Wild West, like steampunk. Has everyone taken the Western theme and put Elon Musk in charge? Like, who is brave enough next Fashion Week to do a mechanical bull and a Cybertruck in the same room?
Yeah, steampunk, definitely elements of it, but really going full steampunk.
Mm-hmm. With like glasses that kind of like have mechanical aspects to them, gloves that have doodads, maybe guns that come out of it.
I mean, you were more into steampunk stuff than I was. Was this like a Lovecraftian concept to begin with? Like, what's the origin of steampunk?
The Will Smith classic Wild Wild West, the movie, was the origin of steampunk. It
That
is the
can't be true.
coolest thing. Google it. It is the coolest thing. I mean, it
Wait,
hits on a lot.
is that actually true?
That's true. I mean,
No
Google
way.
it right now. We're breaking rules. I would love to be proven wrong. The Lovecraft, it obviously echoes some things that have been going through literature, but it is credited as started with Will Smith.
They're saying they include fictional machines like those found in the works of H.G. Wells and Jules Verne.
Mm, mm-mm.
I
It's the
guess
rap
it's
legend Will Smith.
I guess it's been around since the 80s as a tongue-in-cheek variant of cyberpunk.
Mm,
But let's go with Will Smith. It's funnier. Let's just say it was the Will Smith vehicle,
I mean,
Wild Wild West. Or let's say
right.
it was the Cool Modi vehicle, Wild Wild West, the original Wild Wild West.
um, I like this idea of the West as a theme in America, as if we still haven't gone far enough. Like, I think this whole country, as we're in election year, kind of revolves around themes. And one of them is like the expanse of America and the idea that we haven't gone far enough. And the way people talk about Kamala Harris and the way she's mishandled California and what a travesty, quote unquote, that is. And I'm like, oh, we're still enamored with this idea of exploration and like the new, It's just like, if you go to San Francisco, it's a dump. I'm like, any more so than any other place? Like Chicago's complicated, Florida, Miami's complicated. Obviously, San Francisco has its own problems, but the West, we can't escape that ever. It's part of our DNA.
Well, this is that battle for the real America, right? It's like when people talk about the real America, if you're on the left side, or at least one side culturally, like, no, real America is thriving, teeming cities with people of all stripes, of all nationalities, working together, and you're going to have this delicious food, and we're going to go to the Philharmonic, and then there's going to be a park, and
Yeah.
we're going to, go around and hit a bunch of bongos in Prospect Park as people play cricket, and like, and other people are like, no, it's the sprawling plain where I have my gun and I don't see another person.
Right, right. I mean, it kind of reminds me, like, the way we talk about cities is interesting, especially recently, as the as New York City becomes too expensive, as all the subcultures kind of die down and form one blob of a thing. And you have this guy. Have you seen this guy on Twitter who just walks around neighborhoods and be like, "It's a beautiful day on the West Village. It's an awesome night at sunset in the Lower East Side." And there's arguing going on. I think we talked about this last week. And it makes me think about the idea of a city, because on one hand, I'm with him. I'm just like, it is safe. It is beautiful. And then on another hand, I kind of want to be like, this motherfucker, man. It's just like, this is not the city I wanted. I want weirder stuff. I want a bunch of Chinese people moving to Mexico City. I want the best food on the planet. I don't want a bunch of like clean looking people dining outside necessarily. Like, Paris is not the ideal for me.
Right. Which is interesting because I think we've been in the midst of like a Paris moment for a while now,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
where that's the idealized city, and it's beautiful. It's great. It's got this rich cultural history. Um,
Jack's wife Frida
vi-
facing the chairs out. The
yeah, and
first to do it.
visually speaking, this like neoclassicism, where all the buildings in Paris, even the new ones, have to look as if they've been there for 150, 200 years. Emily in Paris, your favorite show.
That's an awesome show. I have no connection to the fashion side of it or the tone of it, but an amazing thing for fans of that stuff.
And it kind of
Shout out.
culminated with, Atiba Jefferson and Devin Booker riding their bikes around and hanging out at La Pearl this summer during the Olympics. But I hear you also, because the other side, that the frontiersman with his lone AR and his, pickup truck, look at the clips of anything happening in New York City, and it's just like the usual suspects. It's like always racist. It's like always about the border. There's just this huge hostility towards people of color, towards cities. Like, yeah, that's another blue state. That's what you get. Car theft or whatever, whatever the hell the clip is of. Someone yelling. It could be anything, And
I mean, yeah.
but that's like they'll see like, I don't know, part of, as you were saying, a city that doesn't have that sort of, it's Paris. That's like an actual living, breathing city that's not one trapped in amber. And people are like, this is revolting.
Yeah. I mean, I've trapped myself into my own echo chamber of defending a place that I love, New York City. Because on one hand, when people are like, it's a shithole, I'm like, it is surely not. It is probably the safest version of the city I've ever lived through. And on another hand, I'm like, fuck this place and their expensive lattes and their $6 slices of pizza. We need to burn it down and start from scratch, to keep it. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, but it's too easy to make it here now. All you need is money. It should be more difficult than that. It should be culturally challenging, right? And currently it's just like people waiting online to go to rodeo bars. I'm like, you can do this in, which they're not. They're no rodeo bars, except for Hell Square number 7. But we're getting this kind of melting pot of culture, right? where it's like, oh, you like Nashville stuff? You can probably find it in New York. I'm like, oh, that's kind of annoying too.
I mean, 100%. You're talking about the dynamic that has more or less plagued New York over the last 20 years, which is as it's gotten safer, as it's gotten, I mean, regardless of what the right wing prairie enthusiasts and the trad wives who want to raise cows on the frontier are saying, New York City is exceptionally safe, with the notable exception of really impoverished neighborhoods that are like these pockets within a city that is increasingly hyper expensive and statistically really safe. That doesn't mean that East New York is safe. That doesn't mean that Brownsville is safe. But
yeah,
right, other neighborhoods are rough. Parts of Queens, parts of the Bronx,
as they should be.
100%.
Huge
I mean,
cities.
as it's always been, right? Yeah. And that's going to continue to exist. But yeah, the rest is like more sanitized than it's ever been. It's more homogenous than it's ever been. I mean, maybe ever is an overstatement, but then you still get, you get to drive out to Queens and you can eat Tibetan food like I did recently. And I made a mistake. I ordered lamb soup on a 90-degree day and I regretted it, Andrew.
How was it spicy?
Wasn't that spicy. It was just the wrong thing to eat at the wrong time. I was sweating profusely. The AC in there wasn't very strong. They had an oscillating fan, and I was aching for it to come back to me every now and then as I'm trying to eat this hot soup with these lumps of lamb that were not actually that tender, I got to say. And they had bone within them as well.
That's tough. No pun intended.
Yes, it was tough. That's grisly.
It's a grisly scene. I like soup any time of year. I don't give a fuck. I like ice cream any time of year. But yeah, I mean, I'll crush a noodle soup on August 15th and suffer for it. But it's all good. You kind of just need a cold beverage afterwards. But I kind of wanted to stay with this idea of like, you go into a fashion show in 2024 in New York and it's square dancing and it's a rodeo thing. And you're like, and this is where I got called out on this week, wonderfully, as like, I always wondered what my gripes would appear like as I got older. Like, what will be the thing that I cannot see as a washed dude? And the thing I complain about the most that annoys the people closest to me is my blind spot in the present. For example, online I saw some like 18-year-old playing with like this new MIDI controller, and they were trying to make a joke and coin the phrase Autech Core. And it was a reference to the band Autechre, and they were playing beeps and boops in a rhythmic way, and she was kind of just freestyling it on her MIDI controller, and it sounded incredible. And she was just like, yeah, this should just be a genre because like I can just do this all day long for hours. It's called Autech Core. And I was like, Try Repete came out in like the mid 90s. I saw Autechre in the late 90s under the Brooklyn Bridge. How is this still relevant to young people? And I got yelled at. I got called out being like, well, you don't know enough to say that. And everything is about the past, kind of. Like when you were young, you were practicing guitar licks, which is true. You know, I was trying to learn Minor Threat songs, and that didn't belong to me. And then I missed Fashion Week, but then I hear of square dancing and rodeo stuff, and I'm like, are we doing anything new? We for sure are. Everyone is doing something new. I don't know about it, but this is how the worst part of me kind of starts. This is what I didn't want to be. This is when I become my own Autechre originalist.
I mean, yeah, you've complained a lot about
why is Nirvana still a thing? Let's
Right.
move on. Let's move
You're
on.
sort of you're anti-nostalgia for people who weren't there to begin with. You're very much
Mm.
like,
But it's
you weren't
three
there. What
generations
do you know
away.
about it?
It's 3 generations away, right? I'm
What
like,
I see, you are trying to, you want the youth to come up with something new.
I want to be excited about something, and it can't be drum and bass because that's 40 years old too.
Well, I mean, I feel like
Kendrick
that
Lamar
one.
can't do the Super Bowl, right? Come on. Maybe he can. Maybe he is the exact person to do the Super Bowl.
Well, this is a masterful transition, first of all, but also this idea that someone like Kendrick would do the Super Bowl is a little strange, because if you go back historically, it was Paul McCartney,
Mm-hmm.
it was Prince, it was
Aerosmith.
Mick Jagger,
Yeah.
Aerosmith. It was like legends of rock. And I'm not saying it needed to stay rock and roll, obviously, but it was people who were iconic and past their prime doing almost career retrospectives. And okay, you got 15 minutes to do your
Mm-hmm.
hugest, most
Prince.
iconic records of
Yeah.
your career in like the most
Thrilling
sanitized.
way. Yeah.
It's like New York City 2024, but on a stage in front of the largest possible audience with fighter jets going over. And it's
And a
this way
conservative
of like,
audience
uh, it's
of men.
the biggest audience and the most mainstream and conservative. And that was like one of the kind of pleasures of seeing Prince do it. And he's there like using the guitar like a phallus. And you're like, this is funny. It's Prince,
Sure.
like
Sure.
tiny. And he's up there in front of a bunch of football fans,
Mm-hmm.
like strumming his guitar penis. And
Still a
it
guitar
was,
though, so they understand it, right?
but at least it was somewhat subversive. But this is where we get to someone like Kendrick. So over the last 3 years, Jay-Z has seized control and sort of a post Kaepernick outreach program where he was going to be a cultural ambassador. And Jay-Z, as a opportunist of the highest level, was like, amazing. I've got a great idea. I'll start booking the Super Bowl acts. It's not even clear if he's any good at this or how hard it is. But he went with the West Coast show, which was Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50 Cent was in it, Snoop, then Usher, who also just performed at Barclays Center a couple days ago. And then it was recently announced, as of I believe yesterday, that Kendrick Lamar is going to do the next Super Bowl. So I have 2 questions for you, Mr. Quo. Do you like Kendrick as a pick? Why or why not? And did Lil Wayne get shafted here?
I do like Kendrick as a pick, and I'm not a Kendrick guy, as we know. But it's interesting. It's in the present. I don't know if he has a swath of hits. I think he'll be probably supported by many cameos. The drop for it was interesting, though. It was Kendrick in front of a giant American flag, like a football field-sized American flag. And that was controversial because Kendrick day ones were put off by that feel. To borrow a Gen Xism, like selling out. I love America. I think the American flag does not offend me at all, so I was okay with it. But I understand why some people who think Kendrick, who has played with imagery like his crew in front of the White House, like kind of subverting the images of our country, and now maybe he's embracing them, but we all kind of get there. We are Time Again Cafe, and now we serve cheap drinks instead of sushi, and it works. And shout out to Time Again Cafe, my favorite, but like cafe. But I think the tension is not as delicious as I want it to be. It becomes a little bit predictable, and Kendrick at his core is a traditional artist. And where you mentioned Prince, who is kind of subversive, Kendrick is subversive in a traditional way.
Well, I just talking a little bit about the iconography of Americana that's used. It's very easy to say, I'm subverting it. Like, this is a country that was not, founded for me. This is a country that has oppressed me and my people. But me being here is a symbol of something larger. It's like an alternate version of the American dream. And again, pretty easy sell to say that. Like, hey, this is subversive. Yeah. This is a guy who is maybe like a black Israelite who has alternate views to that of mainstream America. And he's going to be out there doing his songs, a kid from Compton, from South Central.
He's going to be on Tyler. It's going to be a rundown like his LA show. That's what they're looking for.
It's like this is subverting this idea of the Super Bowl. It's subverting this idea of America. And then also to the point, like, but is it? If you're doing something that like Americans, like one of them, Americans back to the prairie, back to the AR, they're probably pretty comfortable with this. You in front of an American flag? I don't know if they're mad about that.
Square dancing in downtown New York. It's like, oh, I'm disrupting the system. It's like a lot of people are from the South down here with money, they get it. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Kendrick. It's sort of like the Sphere game. Who can actually do the Sphere? If you ask me who I would book if I was Jay-Z, I'm like, get Steve Aoki and friends there. Like, just burn it down with DJs, weirdo DJs that play huge rooms. I really enjoyed the J-Lo Shakira halftime show the most because it like ripped through these infectious beats and it just felt like a mega mix in this weird hallucination. I thought that was my favorite because it wasn't grounded in the past. It felt very much like the recent present.
Man, doing a Steve Aoki and like David Guetta and friends would get people so mad.
I know, but that's what I want, right? And
no, I like the idea. It's like, and who else is there? DJ Premier.
Right. I mean,
are you working?
Yeah. Like, who could do the Sphere now? It's a super short list. Like Metallica. Has Metallica done a halftime show yet? I think that's a little too dark and a little too not festive. It doesn't capture the part of the Super Bowl audience that they want to capture. Right, they want to veer a little bit towards.
They also don't have the hits from a mainstream
Metallica.
Standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, I disagree. I
think like a mainstream thing. I mean, I don't know.
Pretty mainstream as much as Kendrick is. Metallica is like maybe the biggest planet on Earth.
No, I'm saying they're huge, but I mean, how many hits? I mean, they don't have like.
More than Kendrick. I mean, Enter Sandman is a more popular song. Enter Sandman is played in arenas, like for the last
huge
20
record.
Years. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely a huge record.
I think
Injustice for All, big record.
They had
but like
all platinum records. I think if we're talking charting, like I'm not sure Kendrick can rival like Kill 'Em All. Like if you busted a riff, any Metallica of 20 Metallica riffs, I think the whole crowd would start singing along. I think it's immensely popular music, sort of like a rodeo. It's just like, that's weird, like not weird. Everyone knows Metallica.
I mean, I don't know how big Metallica records are over like the last 20 years, like post Mr. Sandman or Enter Sandman.
I mean, they definitely fell off, but like the Rolling Stones did too. If we're talking legacy, like Metallica fans who enjoyed those Fleming Rasmussen records are still alive watching football.
I mean, I would like to see Metallica as a halftime show. It'd be hilarious. Like, here comes Lars Ulrich, and they're about to.
Ulrich, yeah. I mean, they're old. They're long in the tooth. I mean, he can't really play a lot of the original songs, so they would definitely have a backing track or something. But I think they would burn it down. And
no, I would like to see it personally. And here's the thing about Kendrick. Kendrick just did the big LA thing. He just did that.
I know.
But that was the big LA moment. That was Kendrick's big thing. Jay-Z feels unoriginal here. Oh, you're taking the guy who had the biggest hit of the summer, who had this big, huge event, and you're like, and then we're going to add to that, and we're going to be like another Kendrick thing. It just feels kind of cheap.
Picture this: Jay-Z does what he really wants to do. He gets Marina Abramovich up there with all the stars of the art world and does Picasso Baby for the whole time from start to finish. Just Jerry Saltz is dancing. It's just incredible. Shout out to Jerry Saltz.
It's kind of interesting that Jay-Z hasn't just been like, all right, it's me. Like Dick Cheney, newfound Kamala supporter. That's what he did. And you want me to find a vice president? I'm on it. You're looking at it.
Yeah.
Greg Popovich, same thing. I'm going to find us a head coach. It's me, Greg Popovich.
And to your second part of your question, Wayne is just too much of a wild card, but he would be the one. We got New Orleans. You got him starting a show with Skip Bayless. Him being a football fanatic.
Kind of MAGA, but also a rapper.
Out of his mind, right? Like, you can kind of forgive him for anything because he's done so many drugs. He's almost died 3 times. Like, he is a living legend and probably like the world's greatest living rapper. He's still awesome. Even though his albums don't hit like they used to, you'll just hear a verse from his last project and you're like, this guy is just incredible. It should be Wayne. It should be the Hot Boys. Bring out the Hot Boys. I think they're also alive and out of jail officially now. I want to see Manny Fresh out there.
BG has been freed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I don't even want to give Jay-Z the acclaim. He probably should do it. Like, out of huge stars, Jay-Z is one of the few who hasn't.
And the one question would be, is he going to bring out his wife?
Which he should. But there really hasn't been. I mean, Jay-Z is kind of that guy when you look around and like, without even wanting to praise him because he's sort of this annoying character this time. Like, Jay-Z probably should do the Super Bowl.
I agree. I think he should bring out his 90s crew, not to go back into my tunnel vision. Bring out Mace. Bring out the Locks. Bring out, now I'm just naming bad boy artists, but like, bring out everyone.
He's got to bring out Beanie, Freeway. He's got to bring out the Young Guns. The YGs or whatever they went by. He can bring out Emil. That'd be good. Who else? The Ranges. The Ranges.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
I mean, I don't know what else. I don't even know where they're at, but whoever was on that first album. Oh, Jazzo. He can come out. Sauce Money. Bring him.
Sauce Money. Have you caught any of this drama with your girl Taylor Swift and Pat Mahomes' wife? Pat Mahomes. Right.
No, I don't know anything about this. But you're our correspondent when we.
Pat Mahomes' wife is
Swiftie
like
talk.
MAGA. I mean, we're talking the National Football Association, National Football League, and it is
the NFA, as they call it.
It's conservative. It is kind of rooted in NCAA Southern culture. It is not about the Giants. It's about the Cowboys. And she comes out as pro-Trump. Maybe she's like a single issue voter. I don't know, but like she votes red. And then Taylor Swift, we can comfortably assume she's for Kamala Harris. She's alluded to it, but not outright said that. And people were worried since, Taylor's dating Mahomes' partner in crime, Travis Kelce, what the dynamic up in the VIP would be. And they were seen this week embracing, having a good time. Taylor Swift dancing next to Brittany Mahomes. It's like, and now we have this tension that we were talking about last week with Vulgaris. What happens when you're a fan of somebody and you don't agree with their politics? And what happens when their politics are the same, but they associate with people who don't have your politics? Can Taylor Swift just have friends, or do those friends have to check out?
I mean, Taylor Swift has been fairly veiled about her opinions on things, right?
Conservatives buy tickets too.
right. And I don't know. At this point, I mean, I'm so pilled that I'm like, what's the fucking difference? Like, it's like one's on the side of Kamala Harris, the other is MAGA. I'm like, eh.
I mean, don't look
You know, when
into
you're as virtuous as me, Andrew,
right,
they're
right,
all a bunch of right wingers. That's what I'm
right.
saying.
I mean, it's the NFL, but like Taylor Swift is an arena filler. Don't look into how those arenas are paid for and who gets tax money from them. Those T-shirts are expensive and incredible, but let's not look in too hard into how they're manufactured. Like everything's a milkshake duck, right? And the Swifties are doing a good job of framing it, being like, hey, like she's allowed to have. This is what makes her great. She's an open mind. She can have a friend. Man, I always think of my friend who was like, I've told this story before, but was like, I don't tell many people this because it backfires on me, but I can see the aliens. I can see the gray people. And it haunts me, but I see them and no one else can. And I'm like, we're not going to be friends anymore, right? And I'm like, no, I love this. Keep talking. But it's complicated out there, man. I don't know if Taylor Swift has good friends anyway. Her being chummy with Brittany Mahomes seems like probably a life raft to her.
I don't know. I just don't know how they can get along. I mean, on one side, you have a party that, supports the military, the police, closing the borders, war. On the other side, MAGA. It's so. I mean, how can they even get along? Um, but yeah, sometimes you're talking to people and you're like, "Oh, you're crazy," which is sort of different though than like, "Oh, you have politics I don't necessarily dig," but the level of crazy is what's important. When someone says, "I can see the aliens," like, all right, this allows me to compartmentalize.
Mm.
You're insane. But it doesn't seem like it's a threat to me. It seems interesting. It's a good conversation starter. What's up with the aliens today? How are
Yeah.
your aliens?
See, I'm ranking crazy now. I'm seeing the fault in my ways because if someone told me they believe in the grays or they can see the grays, I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool, man. We're good, But if someone was just like, ooh, Donald Trump really gets my goat, I'm like, I'm, I've had enough of this. That kind of crazy is like a little performative, etc., whatever.
Would you let someone who sees gray aliens, like, say, watch your children?
Probably not. But I don't.
I feel like, right now,
But
I
we're
just feel like that's a good measurement. Like,
no, that's too extreme because we
I
did
don't
the New
know.
Yorker cover debate last week. Childcare is extremely skilled and extremely personal and scary. And that's why they get paid the big bucks, hopefully. That's why some of them do. But let's shift that conversation. Like, would you let somebody who saw the gray people set up your birthday party?
Yeah, that seems fine.
I would too. Would you let them run the books for Cookies Hoops?
Mm,
Do merch? Would
maybe.
Would you let them send out those copious orders that we get? Those thousands of orders. Would you
Oh
trust
yeah,
them to
definitely.
pack? Would you?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't. I
I
wouldn't
mean,
hire them to do that.
I feel like they could pack things up.
I don't think so. That's okay because I can't either. That's why I hire it out. But like, I don't trust somebody who sees aliens to double check addresses.
I mean, that's valid. Would you let them drive a bus?
No, I wouldn't even give them a driver's license. But then I also hate cars, so that's a whole different thing.
When's the last time you drove a car?
A couple years ago, when my friends were drunk out east, cars suck.
How was your driving?
Annoying, slow, bad, but I am cautious to a point where I can enrage other drivers but get everyone home. I'm not good.
Well, I mean, I think driving is, I'm not to use the cliche of like riding a bike. it is one of
Yeah.
those things that when you don't drive, it is weird to drive because you just
Yeah.
haven't been doing it.
Oh yeah, it's like speaking Mandarin, French, Spanish. Yeah, it feels weird when I'm recontextualizing it or reassociating with it, but like, yeah, a couple turns and I'm fine. I guess. I hope to never drive a car for the rest of my life.
It's funny sometimes you're driving through, I don't know, like Jersey, traffic's whizzing around.
Oh, the home of the Sixers? Go on.
Exactly, Camden. And you're whipping along like the Tectonic or whatever, and there's cars, exactly, whatever it's called, the Tectonic, the tectonic
Hey,
plates,
hey, hey, I'm trying to
the
help you tonight.
Tectonic Parkway, and whatever it's called. And you're whipping around, and there's cars going in front of you and back, and you're like, should people, like elderly people, really be allowed out here?
Been
Should
saying
people
this
who see
forever.
the gray people be allowed? Because this is kind of dangerous. Like we're really ripping around out here. I would not want like my mom driving a car in this, and I don't think she would enjoy it either.
What did they say? Like, the most dangerous part of taking a woman to get an abortion is driving there. Like, it driving is so dangerous. It's more dangerous than taking casual drugs. I think probably flying an airplane, things that we're scared of. Royce White. But yeah, I'll see people in my life being like, I believe in the Grays, and then hop into a ball of steel and go 60 miles an hour.
Weirdly, though, I know the stats show that there are lots of accidents. Of course, I mean there are lots of cars on the road,
It's probably twice as many.
and I feel like you just don't see that many though.
What?
Just anecdotally speaking, like you see like fender benders, and then you'll be driving along, and every now and then you'll see a car off to the side, and some of it's mechanical problems, some are actual accidents where, oh, this is bad, and there's an ambulance there. And I feel like if you take a long trip and you're in the car for like 5 hours or something, generally you'll see like at least one gnarly accident. Like if it clearly occurs a lot, but sometimes I'm like, we're doing pretty good. It feels like there'd be a whole lot more.
I don't think we should ban driving. Talk about the West. Like, being on the open road is like a deeply psychologically joyful thing for Americans and like important thing for Americans. That idea of freedom. But I'm a city guy, and I just think in cities it is the blight of every single city.
Me personally, when I'm in LA and I have to drive, don't like it.
I don't
In New
consider that a
York,
city though. Yeah.
in New York, when I definitely don't need to drive, driving is a joy.
Yeah. I mean, people who enjoy driving have cars and do drive. I don't know many people who are like, "Oh, I wish I could drive." They have cars. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I things in terms of dangerous things that people do. I always think of like my therapist who was so bad. People who give terrible financial advice. Doctors who are just like, yeah, this is the thing that's wrong with you. It's just like dangers all around. Like, not a good. When you get to my age, this advanced washed age, you're paranoid of all bad things that seem normal and people mining Stone Temple Pilots yet again.
One thing I wanted to say before we totally leave the Little Wayne discussion was that historically, I just want to make this point. So I don't even really want to revisit it. I just forgot to make it. Historically, the Super Bowl does not have a locational significance when it comes to the artist.
It shouldn't.
The LA one did. But other than that, none of them do. None.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there was like Latin music in Miami, but neither Shakira nor J-Lo are from there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Timberlake was in Tennessee or wherever the fuck he's from, or Orlando. Like, there's no connection whatsoever. So, like, when people are like, it should be Wayne, actually, the New Orleans thing is just nice. It would feel symbolic because he is from there, but there is no precedence whatsoever other than doing that one LA one when they were in LA. That's
You
the
walk
only
into
one.
a Fashion Week after party. I don't expect to see someone displaying the elements of hip hop to me. I don't see elbows grinding the wheels of steel. I don't see someone busting out cardboard. I see a rodeo. I
I'm just
see
saying.
I see line dancing.
I'm saying people just bringing up Wayne is totally based on it being in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why are people saying it should be Wayne over Kendrick? They're just saying it solely because it's in the City of Lights, the Big Yeezy,
Let me propose
the
a, a
the
new
city that never sleeps,
yeah.
Nolans.
They bust out of a giant po' boy. The po' boy opens up like a coffin, and all these prominent rappers jump out of it. Wait, let me propose another Super Bowl halftime theme. New
Is
metal.
it Is it Mystical?
Yeah. Ooh, is he still in jail forever?
No.
He's out.
I think he got out.
Anyway, new metal.
C Murder is still in jail.
Linkin Park halftime show. There's no controversy with them, is there? They're good to go. They've replaced Chester. They're they're a phoenix rising from the ashes. Don't Google it. Don't Google it.
I'm on a C Murder diet. I see murder, and I don't know what the next part of that would be. He's still in jail.
Have you been following this Alice Munro esque drama with Linkin Park?
No, this is your wheelhouse. Explain.
Chester dies, right? Like tragically, commits suicide, and they get a replacement singer. The singer's awesome. People see clips on Twitter. She's ripping it. A new kind of dimension to these beloved songs that are generations old at this point. But the band is back. Huge band, like can sell tickets. The brand of this band is still strong. And then, like every milkshake duck, people do some Googling. She is a Scientologist, and she maybe have supported Danny Masterson in his trial. And Cedric from Mars Volta and At the Drive-In is married to one of Danny Masterson's victims, and they're fighting about it. And then all of a sudden, everyone's looking at Linkin Park and be like, how come you didn't vet this person? Is this all a psyop? Are you guys the type of people we thought you were? And it's a whole mess. And throughout this whole thing, all I'm thinking is, are we talking about Scientology and Linkin Park again? Like, are we still mad at Scientologists?
They've really sort of fallen off.
Although,
We used to be.
yeah.
Well, here's my thing.
Okay.
When we were like mad at Scientologists, was that just trickle down from the era of like satanic panic and cults, and we were just concerned about these kind of organizations that were like, can you still get work as one of those deprogrammers? Because remember, they'd be on TV all the time, like, all right, here's a deprogrammer. What do you do? And they'd be like, all right, so we get our van and we roll up and we grab the person as they're like selling oranges or whatever they were doing for their cult, and we throw them in the back and we tie them to a chair and we yell at them for like a week straight, and then send them back to their home. And did it work? Like, sometimes. Is there still like can you be a gainfully unemployed cult reprogrammer in 2024?
1,000% yes, right?
Hell
Maybe
yeah.
even more so,
Maybe.
especially with all these Netflix documentaries that we get to watch, like with shock and awe. But like Scientology, on one hand, I was like, it just seems like Christianity, and it just seems like any strange religion that puts ashes on your foreheads once a year and whatever. People believe in stuff and support that, whatever. And then Cedric from Mars Volta put out a long Instagram post and being like, Listen, I tried to get out of this cult and they like murdered my dogs. They follow me around. They like stand outside of my window. And this is like the Jeremy Blake stuff, right? He was like, I tried to get out and like, I don't feel safe. The whole foundation of my life is upended. And I'm like, ooh, this sounds crazy, right? Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm out of the NFL. I am out of football. I don't do fantasy anymore. I People ask me to join their leagues. I don't want to do it. I don't follow the Jets anymore, and I am just free. But what if someone in a green jersey was standing outside my house like 24 hours a day? I'd be fucking freaked out, man.
I'm doing a little research, which goes against our rules. I wanted to find a deprogrammer around here. I couldn't find one. Did find a Reddit thread that said, here's one, someone whose handle name is Cults and Cultish said, deprogramming involves kidnapping and force and no professional credentials. If you Googled about this, then you should know. It doesn't work and there's no magic solution. In fact, the failure rate is nearly 100%. And someone says, like, the field is different today. And then the other response to them is, shut the fuck up, dumbass, you should kill yourself. So I feel like I'm on the right path.
What path are you on in regard?
The kidnappers that of yore may not be around as much. Like the throw a bag over their head and put them in the back of like a minivan. That might not be the game anymore. And to me, I'm not here for that. I want the old school reprogramming.
But this is my point to that idea, right? Cedric is like, the kidnappers are still here, but they're coming from inside the house. Like, the threatening people who are putting you in cars is the thing, right? And it's so easy to be like, for me personally, Scientology is just like any weird thing. But then you get firsthand accounts and you're like, oh, this is crazier than any deprogramming MTV true story episode I've ever seen.
I've known a few people who are in cults. My understanding is that all cults are sex cults.
Go on.
I mean, that's just my understanding of it. It's based on
what is
nothing
your
that I've
understanding of it?
Just so it's like, oh, it's a cult. Yeah. And like, there's like a leader. I'm like, is it a sex cult? Like, well, they're all sex cults.
It depends on what we think is a cult, right? Is MAGA a sex cult? If we consider it a cult. Is leftism a sex cult?
Well, is QAnon a cult? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
If you find out that Russia is paying podcasters $100,000 a week to say Ukraine is the real enemy, does that involve glazing eventually?
I was like, that's cookies hoops. That's cookies hoops money.
Right. So that's just a drop in the bucket for the interns. But if you're,
for us, that would be a bad week. Like $100,000 an episode. I was like, that's it.
I mean,
that's chump change.
Is Russia a cult, and is it a sex cult?
It's interesting you mentioned that. There's a player that we don't give enough credit to. His name is Andrei Kirilenko. We don't talk nearly enough about the Russian players of historical relevance. The Russian players, truly the best basketball players there were. Cha-ching.
Can you name
$100,000
others?
Right there. Timofey Mozgov. Who can forget?
I'm Googling it.
There's at least like 5 more. Who are we?
I mean, I always want to consider the Bogdanovi, but we know they're not. Victor Kropapa, remember him?
Yeah, played for like the Bulls or the Cavs or somebody.
Oh man, Knicks legend Alexei Shved.
Yeah, Sixers legend as well.
He was good. Oh my god, this is brutal. When you Google Russia NBA, Brittany Griner comes up. Yikes.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that's about it, dude. So we didn't even get 5.
Yeah, they aren't putting up like the
Jonas
the Lithuania.
Let's go. Yeah,
Yeah,
like what is Russia, right? Like it's
yeah.
close to
Russia's not
some
really doing it.
Chinese, some Kazakhstani NBA ballers. I don't know, but remember that Victor Prokhorov was one of the 30 owners of the NBA, and then gave it over to someone who works with communist China. Say what you will. Where are we digging with this tenant media
I
stuff?
just want to start praising Russian players more because clearly someone with deep pockets is out here willing to fund pods. And
Oh, we just
here's a
got
question.
someone just bought 5 hats. God, it's from Moscow?
Oh, perfect.
Wow. Crazy.
So my thing here is, okay, they're out there doing some Russian propaganda work. So what? No, I'm seriously, I don't know what's the problem with that. What's the problem with a media company getting paid by a foreign entity? Like, isn't that what happens all the time?
It goes it runs parallel to the idea that some people are like, what do you mean surveillance? You can just watch me do it. Like, what does it matter if you are monitoring my moves? I'm just living my life on my phone. Or people who are like, what is being a spy? I'm sure every spy did a spy. Are you a spy? Or did a spy write this? But spies are just like, all I did was I had someone in China who I talked to, and I kind of like I took money from them to like help them with certain research, and that research involves my job. Is that taking pictures of blueprints of a nuclear weapon? No, I just told them Trump has interests in winning swing states. It gets complicated, right? If we're going back into the 80s. But I think politics is strange and Cold War tactics are hard to parse now that we're kind of generations away from the Cold War. But election interference is a slippery slope that MAGA is hoping is even slipperier because they're just like, well, what does it matter?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is Tim Pool and these schmoes, they aren't elected officials. They're just people with podcasts. And if they're taking a shit ton of money from a mysterious entity who wants them to make pro Russian content, I'm saying, what is actually illegal about that? Like,
That's
is
what
there
I'm
a
saying,
law
right?
that you can't make pro Russian content? Like, that doesn't seem like a law?
So they're free people. They're still podcasting. Your boy Merrick Garland proposed this accusation at them, and now they get to defend themselves, right? So they're still doing podcasts, and they're obviously denying everything, but they're not denying that it's a bad thing. They're like, we didn't know about this bad thing. This bad thing would put us in
Right.
jail. We are the victims here. Tenant Media is a dorky company probably named after that mind-bending Christopher Nolan movie.
Absolutely based off of that.
Yeah, there's nothing else called Tenet.
No, and it was founded 2 years after that movie came out. Clearly based on that. Like, ooh, it's tied to Russia, but it's also like the future and the present,
Mhm.
and it's altering reality. Absolutely. That's the name of our company. That's like, yeah, you kind of gave up the game with that one, guys.
Yeah, it's like someone plastering their Cybertruck in the Matrix stuff. Shout out to the Matrix visuals. But it's like, oh yeah, Elon Musk saw the Matrix and he was like, I'm gonna start my company. I'm gonna do some mind-bending
Look,
shit.
I've said it many times, but it's like when you walk by Maison Jar over on Nassau Avenue, you know it's only there because someone came up with a name.
Right, right.
Um,
So
well, the one thing I was going to say about the,
mm,
I mean, look, I don't know how this would work where it's like APAC can pay politicians and pay whoever they want consultant fees, but Russia isn't allowed to pay Tim Pool. But regardless, either way, I saw someone, I think it was one of the guys from Chapo was talking about it. It's like, no, this is what the money's like on the right wing. If you're willing to be like a right wing huckster, the money is like really next level. So I don't know. Maybe we should become sort of like a right wing, but just when it comes to basketball.
Listen,
But
if you want to be the
where
GOAT, you have to be good at
Sorry,
one
go ahead.
thing. You just have to be good at one thing if you want to be called the GOAT. Name me one thing Ray Allen's good at.
Just one thing that Ray Allen can do.
Just
But this is where we see this in sports though, right? Where you see the people veer rightward and all of a sudden it's like, I'm just rich now. Like Whitlock. No one cares about him, but he just went right wing over and over and over. Like, all right, fine, we'll put you on TV.
I mean, we just got done talking about Kendrick Lamar saying yes to a Super Bowl halftime show. He's just like, just give me all the money. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm like a Scientologist who started with you in the gutter and now has risen to be your leader. And with that comes all forgivability.
Yeah. So what if you can see the great people? It's all good.
I mean, Whitlock does that just for. I'm not a Whitlock apologist, but he's someone I don't like. But he is participating in an exercise that I think is kind of necessary, which is kind of like, but fuck all your ideas. And I'm like, oh, that's fair. I don't agree with his ideas, but every time something comes up, he's like, nah, just fuck you. And I like it.
I have no issue with people who are contrarian. I mean, that's a lot of our shtick. Like The Joy of Basketball is a contrarian basketball book, but it doesn't come from a place that is contrarian for the sake of it. It's more of a worldview. And I guess you could say someone like Whitlock has a worldview and he's contrarian along those lines. But half the time he says stuff, you're like, oh, you're just trying to get a rise out of people.
Absolutely.
Like, I would give us enough credit. I don't think we do stuff for attention. We just have a little nuance.
Right.
I don't think we're here for shock value.
I mean, if I believed in the characterization of, if I lived in Jason Whitlock's brain, if he was being honest in his thoughts, I would think Jemele Hill was the same, right? Like, oh, you're just going against everything everyone else just believes in. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, my thoughts align more with someone like Jemele Hill, but like, I enjoy, like, everyone complains about, well, I complain about Elon Musk kind of changing the scope or shape of Twitter. I really enjoy it. I like to see people being like, you know who are the worst people in the world? 5'5" Asians who stand for New York City.
I agree with that part.
I do too.
Yeah. Before we get into basketball, let's talk Rich Homie Quan for a second.
God damn.
R.I.P. I think what's interesting about him is phenomenal rapper that
he was a wonderful
kind
artist.
of vanished for no particular reason. And I was thinking
now we
about
know
that.
why he vanished.
Well, there was that. There was sort of a self-imposed exile. There was the contract stuff. But you're looking back and you're like, right, he never fell off. It wasn't like we stopped caring about Rich Homie Quan, but for any particular reason that we were aware of, all of a sudden he just slipped away. And going back and listening to those songs from the tour and his big hits really puts you back in a headspace of 2013, 2014. Crazy. Like immediately, I'm like, oh, we're over here on the south side of Williamsburg, and it's a bunch of graffiti kids, and we're going to Enid's, and they're putting on Type Away. It's very, it was like instantaneous. Like boom, you're right back there.
I think that was the moment I realized that the nightlife was done for me, because I had been keeping up with all this music, and by the time Rich Homie Quan hit that summer, it was so incredible in that song, and I was playing music like that in blocks, and kids were just destroying stuff in the room, like smashing lights, smashing paintings, smashing stuff. Like this was a Travis Scott kind of hardcore mentality. And I realized like I didn't understand it anymore, but I was thrilled by it. But music had gone to a point where I was like, I just need to stand back and watch because like old people cannot be the messenger for this new shit that sounds incredible. And then he vanished, to your point. And I was like, what happened to all that good stuff? And we know he got into a feud with Thug, and we know he was addicted to drugs. And it's hard to sustain. Like I have criticisms for Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, Drake, but their sustainability is a skill. It's not because they got lucky. That is the reason they are who they are.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's when we talk about basketball. Well, Kobe being able to play that long,
LeBron.
whether or not you were a big Kobe fan, he gets
Yep.
credit for it. He did it.
Absolutely.
And even if you think Tracy McGrady at the height of his powers was better than Kobe, end of the day, he didn't do it long enough.
Michael Jordan only played 6 seasons. Just 6. It's crazy.
And yet he won every time he played.
Undefeated. Yeah.
So you look at someone like Wayne, and we're talking about him for the Super Bowl, and he hasn't been that relevant in 10 years, but he's still Lil Wayne. He had this incredible resume, this incredible run where he was the hottest guy out. And Quan never reached that kind of pinnacle. He was never like the hottest dude out. But that mixtape with him and Thugger, I remember listening to it and just feeling as if something had changed.
Yeah,
And
that's what I mean.
they were the children of Wayne, to be sure. This was a Wayne genetic hybrid. But the sing-songiness, the way that those two were going back and forth, the use of melody and their voices as instruments, and at times like how incoherent it could be and how weird it was. That mixtape,
incredible.
Not saying it's the number one mixtape, but it's up there. I would. It's right up there.
I'd propose Wayne, Back Like Cook Crack. I'm not sure, some Diplomat stuff, but yeah, in the pantheon, the Hall of Fame of something that isn't like cultivated anymore. The sloppy kind of collaborations done.
I mean, some of those songs.
Thoroughly.
Also, one thing that's different, and I want your opinion on this. Songs were so much longer back then, which I don't know how I feel about it, because especially someone like T.I., you listen to some of his hit records, like, oh, great record. Why is it 6 minutes long? This was a single.
The verse 4 times again.
It's crazy how long they are. Okay, hook, 8 bars. You're going to hear that, a total of 32 bars plus a bridge. We're going to have 3 verses, each 24 bars. They are like 4.5, 5 minute, 6 minute songs as singles. Then you look at it now, it's like single, 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Yeah, and like at some point with those long ass songs, I'm like, even a Craig Mack remix isn't long enough. Like, T.I., make your song 25 minutes. Let's go. If you really want to do this, make it a vibe. Just like, let's flatten it out like a jam band, right? Just like keep the beat going. We're going to do this for 40 minutes. And let's have people just like express themselves, like just kind of ramble, kind of do their thing. I think that was the potential of it. But obviously it's phones.
A potential realized by RXK Nephew and RX Poppy, of course, who have made 19-minute songs.
I mean, this is after your boy that I am blanking on right now from Chicago does acid rap, Chance the Rapper.
Oh, Chance.
He kind of does that first in a way, and Chance the Rapper was awesome for many years before I think he took his Super Bowl halftime show too early. If that was his destiny.
Okay, Super Bowl performance, Doechii. It's time. She has a mixtape. People like Super Bowl her.
Yo, did you see that shot fired that Azalea Banks took at Ice Spice this weekend?
No, what'd you say?
Brutal. It had me shuddering. She was like, "We really got to talk about Ice Spice and like some sort of like birth defect and mental capacity, and I was like, that is crossing a line, man. I
Well,
was
she was just calling her an R word.
kind
I mean,
of.
when you start bringing up birth defects, you're getting a little cutty.
I mean, it just even Shutters say like Down syndrome, but she was like, just look at her. This is on. I didn't say it obviously, but I was like, Azalea Banks, you've gone too far. I'm a fan, but like, she is a brilliant person, an incredible rapper, but that is just too much.
Did they have a long-standing beef, or was this just her
Azalea has a
riffing?
Yeah, Azalea has new, old, medium beefs. I just feel like she's a equal opportunist in taking down celebrities, which is like usually kind of at least interesting. But I was like, that's mean, man. Can we leave Ice Spice alone, who is an underrated rapper? I think she's good at rapping.
I think she's good at rapping. She's also really innocuous. Like, what did Ice Spice do to get anybody mad?
She
What's the
made
problem with her?
money. She made money, and she's infiltrated a scene that a lot of people are trying to do, which is like art house, white people, David LaChapelle, fashion, all that stuff.
I don't know what she was doing this fashion week. Maybe she was around, but I think it was a year or 3 seasons ago, whenever it was. Absolutely omnipresent.
Mm.
She really did it. She was dancing
Mhm.
on the bar at Boom Boom. She was at every single party,
Yeah.
and I know what you mean. Like that's like a cultivated environment. And now she did that, so she doesn't have to do it anymore. But she had her like big fashion week coming out party. I don't know, whatever, couple of seasons ago. Um, it's interesting because in basketball, there are some people that are a little bit like Azalea Banks, mercurial,
Nice.
mercurial talent who
Do they talk like this?
now just exist to talk shit, and that's their entire role.
Are they a host on
And
Inside the NBA?
well, there's Shaq, but I'm thinking of Gilbert Arenas right now
Oh, wonderful.
because
Yeah, I'm into it.
Gilbert, because Gilbert Arenas, huge shit talker, very offensive at times. Sometimes he's funny, but we're gonna get so much Gilbert Arenas because his son is like a top 5 prospect in his class. His son, what the fuck is his name? I don't know. It starts with an A. Anyway, his son, nasty, top shooting guard in his class by ESPN rankings. And there was a viral video that on Instagram showing him playing against a bunch of pros. And this kid is what, 16, 17 years old. And I mean, he's getting buckets on KD. He's getting buckets on Nas Reed. He's getting buckets on, I think, Moses Moody, someone else. Gilbert Arenas as like the proud papa is a role that I hadn't even thought about. We're going to get so much Gilbert Arenas.
But Gilbert Arenas as a proud papa, wasn't he famous, if I'm not mistaken, for adopting like a wayward teen? Like, isn't he famous for being like this wonderful caretaker?
Oh, maybe he is. I'm just thinking that if this kid goes to become a star, it's going to be so much visibility
Was
for
LeVar Ball
Gilbert.
silenced? What happened? Like, I know his wife got sick, but he's still as flamboyant as ever. He has no presence at all in our.
Well, right. He was kind of canceled for being creepy on air, right?
He fought a woman on air in a really disrespectful way. But since when does that get you canceled from anything?
But wasn't he like kind of horny on Maine also?
Oh,
But
I didn't know
I
he
felt
was
like
blazing.
I felt like he was kind of horny at one point. Like,
With right, you're talking about Jalen Rose's ex, where he said something and she was like, "Oh, excuse me," but I don't. That was a misunderstanding. That
I
could have
forget.
just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think he was accused of attempting to rizz her up.
I mean, is he the Rizzler, the original Rizzler?
Look, he's not a generational Italian, if that's what you're asking.
But I don't know. Gilbert Arenas being in the zeitgeist isn't bad. I just wish he was kind of better at his takes. Like, I love Skip Bayless. I love Nick Wright. I I enjoy, even though I complain about it, I enjoy Shaq. Every time he says something, I'm like, ooh. Ray Allen's doing stuff now. I enjoy all this. I wish Gilbert was a bit better at it. He doesn't really cut as deep as he could because he kind of goes for that Super Bowl halftime show too quickly, where he's like, you know who sucks? Someone who's good. And I'm like, dude, build it up a little, create a culture, create kind of a discussion. Don't go for the jugular right away.
I mean, look, we're in the bowels of the off season. We're right around the corner. I want to say in 2 weeks, whatever training camp starts, it's close, and then we'll have real basketball to talk about. Right now, not much. So this is pundit on pundit action. So we also had another clip with Ray Allen, who he is not a pundit, but he was debating with some kids about LeBron being the GOAT. And Ray Allen's like, yeah, but was he the best foul shooter? He's the best dribbler. And the kids are like, well, no, but what are you talking about? And I hadn't really thought about like Ray Allen as a guy who had terrible takes and was maybe like dumb as a bag of bricks. It was just a jarringly dumb take. And I wonder if there's more context that I'm not understanding from their conversation, because that's a bizarre thing for anyone to say. Like, LeBron isn't the best because he wasn't the best free throw shooter. Was he trying to get around to compartmentalizing everything in order for him to say, I'm actually the best 3-point shooter? Like, where was he going with this rationale?
I mean, it's so interesting. I kind of want to touch on something you said right before that. It's like Ray Allen is kind of our Kobe actor casting bias in a take discussion. Because if Patrick Ewing said this, everyone would be like, he's a moron. We always knew he was a moron. Patrick Ewing, brilliant basketball mind. It's a crime he never coached as a head coach in the NBA, in my opinion. But Ray Allen, you're like, he was an actor in a beloved movie, and he's handsome, and he's not 7 feet tall, and he looks like he's cast into this role of an intelligent ex-basketball player. So it's jarring to see him say something like that, because you want him to be like, hey man, basketball is about multitudes that go into a team, go into an organization, and sometimes a player. And sometimes you don't have to be the best at one thing. Sometimes you have to be good at multiple things. And then all of a sudden you become a leader. You become a GOAT. Like, that's what we want to hear, right? And I love it when he kind of defies that kind of Kobeism or Mamba kind of prototype, where he's not like, LeBron's determination is what got him to this point, which is the best player of all time. He's just like, I'm fucking bitter because I hit one of the biggest shots in NBA history, and I got LeBron some championships. I got the Celtics a championship. I hauled Paul Pierce over the finish line, and no one talks about me.
I think this is part of it. And the idea of him as this cerebral player, I think, is interesting because part of it is based on him being one of the leads in He Got Game, him and Denzel Washington, and playing.
Like, was he a smart basketball player? I don't remember him as a smart.
I don't know.
Player.
But right, do we just think that really good shooters are smart? Is that like,
this is the JJ Redick conversation? Like, was he smart? Because they were both poor defenders. The defense is like a whole world of intelligence.
Well, also Ray Allen, really underrated as a non-shooter, especially early in his career. He was in a dunk contest. I mean, Ray Allen was a great athlete.
Oh, on the Sonics and Bucks, he was nasty. In video games, unfuckwithable, right? Like, you just could not beat Ray Allen.
Yeah, are we giving... Is it point guards and shooters are getting intellectual bias points in the way that big men don't? And this has been a thing forever, as you alluded to before. Centers rarely get coaching jobs, and they're like, it's because they think we're dumb, that we're only here because we're big guys and we don't understand the game. And, it's the point guards who are always viewed as, the floor generals, and they get to become coaches. So this bias exists. Mm-hmm. I hadn't really thought about how it applies to shooters. Do we think of like Kyle Korver, smart guy or dumb guy?
Of course, but that's a loaded example because he's white.
I know that's what I'm giving you a loaded example.
Yeah, I think we view him as smart. Not coach level smart, but like Quentin Richardson, deadly 3-point shooter with D'Antoni and the Knicks. He was smart enough.
I mean, sure, like Michael Redd. Like, brain genius, Michael Redd. He was able to shoot.
Yeah, I mean, we are inherently sexist, racist, and full of biases that go into all of this, right? And we do this, and I do this, and subconsciously I live it for so long where I see Ray Allen talking, I'm like, that was not smart. That was not a smart thing that I expected to hear out of his brain.
Yeah, the white shooting guard archetype. I'm like, wait, Kerr, Paxton.
Everyone's like, TJ McConnell could be a player coach. I'm like, what?
Say all the time.
Why? I don't think
Or,
so.
but yeah, Paxton became the GM of the Bulls. Kerr became the coach of the
Mike
Warriors.
Dunleavy became GM of the Warriors.
And then there's also
Luke Walton became a coach.
It's kind of, I mean, we're just talking about white guys.
No, I thought that's what we were doing.
No, I know. I just mean they're the best example. The white shooting guard, it's not even a white point guard. If you're just a white guy who's somewhat small, you can just be ushered immediately into some sort of front office job. Or like Tim Legler, like shooter, played for the Wizards and maybe it was the Bullets when he was around. I don't even know. Like, oh, you're on TV. Great. Yeah. Good job, Legler.
Is JJ Redick the smartest basketball coach of all time?
There's something about his mind, the way he thinks the game, Andrew.
That sleeve just doesn't show up out of nowhere. He doesn't go away, come back with a brutal surgery, a sleeve full of tattoos.
His Maroon 5 looks. But yeah. So with Ray Allen, though, I think we have viewed him as being a cerebral guy, in part because shooting is such like a filigreed, detailed skill that
3-point shooting.
3-point shooting, it just takes work. It's immaculate. It's artistic, and
I mean, Larry.
We don't think of you as well. We also just don't think of him as being like Michael Porter Jr. or something, where it's just like all you got going for you is this beautiful jump shot. Nothing else. Everything else is just crickets. But
not to pull
when the ball leaves your hand, it's beautiful.
Not to pull a Whitlock here. He has been like a reasonably normal dude for a long time. I mean, he had beef with the Celtics after they won, jetted to Miami and had beef with the Heat. But that kind of I brushed under the rug of like competitive edge, fire, motivation. I never viewed him as somebody who wasn't like just your normal level basketball genius who makes it to the NBA. But him saying that with such passion, I was like, not only has he been thinking about this for a long time, he has feelings about probably analytics, about his legacy, and how we define greatness.
Sure. And yeah, it's a good, I like that you brought that up because he clearly had thought about this.
Yeah.
And he had a point he wanted to make.
Where's the camera?
And like, oh, some kids want to talk about LeBron. All right, here you go. This thing I've been saying while I've been listening to sports radio and driving around in my car, saying to nobody 20 times over, well, I'm the 8th greatest free throw shooter in history. Like, where's LeBron on that list, huh? But he is famous for one incredible quote though, or one incredible DM that he sent. I'm getting there, wrote Ray Allen. When you masturbate, think about my tongue on your clit and switching back and forth from my dick to my tongue. Last time he ever tweeted.
Is he the head of a cult? Is this the Ray Allen cult? He got game cult? The Jesus cult? We're talking about Shuttlesworth here. Is he a
every cult.
Christian? Is he an upstanding Christian? Is what we're saying. Is he a respectable man of the Bible?
Is he a Christian guy? He's giving off Christian aura, like halo effect.
Hmm, that's true. And he did play Jesus Christ in a movie.
This is true.
Was he ever cast in another movie after that? Did he have like a bit part?
Not that I know of. I mean, he was pretty bad in that movie,
He was.
but
He was.
he had to authentically be a great basketball player. So I understand what Spike Lee was doing,
Yeah.
because you can't have a movie where someone's supposed to be the next incredible basketball player and it's just an actor out there who's like can shoot a little bit.
Philip
It
Seymour
was.
Hoffman.
I mean, Spike did it the right way. He went and he had John Wallace, Rochester legend, Travis Best,
Best,
and a
yeah.
couple other guys. Walter McCarty,
McCarty.
Kentucky Knicks legend, maybe.
Oh, of course.
I mean,
Knicks
Played
draft
for the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he had real basketball players out there, and the basketball itself was great. You could tell these were really good players, and you can't fake that stuff. And when you do, it ruins your movie.
Man, I'm not a Denzel dude. I like him as much as a normal person, but he pulled it off kind of. They didn't really. He was kind of boxy and kind of upright, but he was believable as a washed up playground legend.
I thought so too. He had enough like 70s old head mystique that you're like, all right, this looks foreign to, at that point, the modern game, which was still the 90s then. But it was like, oh, I guess people could have played like that.
Yeah. I mean,
because we never watched that era either.
God, that beginning of that movie is beautiful with the beef song, with the violins, and talk about the West. Jesus, this is the beginning of steampunk basketball, this podcast. But when it's just kids playing playground hoops, ooh, chills. I love it. I love it. I love it when a fan can turn something really simple, like Hard Knocks used to do that for the NFL, which I quit.
Yeah, the beginning of that movie kind of brings you to tears.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's great.
And it's, cutting back and forth between the Iowa cornfields and kids shooting on the back of a barn to, West Fourth to wherever. It's like the full spectrum of American basketball and the joy that people get out of it. And sometimes it lends itself to books, for example.
The Joy of Basketball?
Yeah, that's the one.
So wait, back to bringing yourself to tears. Ray Allen's take does a player fit that criteria? Does a player exist that is like, they are the best at rebounding, shooting, and passing, therefore they are the GOAT?
Well, that was kind of where I was wondering about his ultimate point. Was he trying to say that there are different GOATs? Like there may be the defensive GOAT, there may be a rebounding GOAT, there may be a three-point shooting GOAT, there might be a free throw GOAT.
Yeah.
Was he trying to say that he doesn't believe in composite metrics, that he's really more of a...
would be great, right? It feels like there can be no GOAT because we are all putting these players in aspirational places that nature doesn't allow.
And you know what? If he was going somewhere that is probably incorrect but intellectually interesting, I'd be with that.
He might drop too soon, though. Sort of like Kendrick accepting the Super Bowl halftime show offer.
Like, look, there is no such thing as a good player.
I love it.
Players are good at different tasks.
Did he ghostwrite the Joy of Basketball?
I was like, how about this, Ray? Like, all right, we're not having a free throw contest. We're just going to play a game of basketball. Who are you picking first? Like, ooh, all right, now this is trickier. Can we have a free throw contest? Because I feel like I'd be picked higher than LeBron. How about that? I'm going like 8th. LeBron's going, oh, he's not even being drafted in the National Free Throw League.
I mean, based on his criteria, it would elevate him in the all-time ranks, right? Because he is famously, and I don't know if it's true, I got to look at those stats, but he's famously known as one of the best three-point shooters of all time.
He was. I would say he is, considering the era he played, I think he's probably third best or second
No
best.
way. I mean, Curry,
Curry's one.
Reggie Miller.
I mean, those are the two that would be above him. You know, you can't say someone like Clay is a better 3-point shooter than him, only because Clay's volume is proportionate to
Like
the
Jason
modern
Kidd.
era.
Yeah. I mean, Bird not being there might anger some Russian, what would you call it? Spies.
He just didn't take enough. But I get it. If someone wanted to say he's one of the greatest 3-point shooters of all time because no one took them back then, he still should be in that list. Like, all right, fine. But he shouldn't be because they really didn't take threes.
Yeah, you have to give it to Klay Thompson. What are we doing? Why can't we give it to him?
Because
He's second all time.
Right. No, he's not.
Oh, am I just doing active? Oh.
It's Ray Allen second. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's Curry, then Ray Allen, then Harden, then Lillard, Reggie Miller, Klay Thompson, Korver, LeBron, hilariously at 8.
Oh, I'm just looking at the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's really skewed hugely towards the modern era.
Yeah.
Where, you know, Paul George is 11th, Kyle Lowry is 13th. I'm going to start using that when people say the Sixers need more shooting. I'm like, they have the 11th and 13th best 3-point shooters in history. Lowry and Paul George.
Listen,
right there.
The New Jersey Sixers have enough shooting. I'm tired of hearing about it.
Oh, Buddy Hield, bring him back, number 22 all time. Buddy Hield.
What do you think about the Sixers fan base calling Ben Simmons a coward and then not showing up to playoff games against the Knicks? And then Michael Rubin having to buy playoff tickets to place actors at home games in Wells Fargo. And then immediately these legitimate rumors of the Sixers moving to close by. And I have friends from New Jersey who consider themselves Philadelphians because they're so close. But I don't think they're going to move. How do you feel about the brand? Is the brand strong enough?
Look, the New Jersey Giants, the New Jersey Nets, the New Jersey Jets. They're going to still be called Philly, even if they move to Camden. They shouldn't be, though, because it would be funnier.
So funny.
Like if the lore of like the Philadelphia 76ers and the logo and everything, like, no, we're totally scrapping it. Like, new rebrand, new name. We're now like the Camden Dragons. Like, just annihilate the Sixers from history. Wipe out the entire bloodline.
What if they went a step further and we're like, okay, we're going to be in Camden. We're still Philly at heart, but we have to change our name to remind people that we're from Philly. Should we be the New Jersey Franklins? Should we be the New Jersey Steaks? Should we be the New Jersey Broccoli Rob and roast pork sandwiches?
That sounds delicious.
What would you go for first?
But are the sandwiches too big, Andrew?
If you're a child, you would have half for lunch and maybe half for dinner. But I'm an adult, so I don't eat sandwiches.
Shout out to Mobadanga, by the way. That's our buddy, Lucian. And he had a great basketball tournament out at Jacob Reese in the Rockaways this weekend. A lot of friends were there. Last Lap, who won a cookies tournament, our very first one.
So fucking annoying.
Was triumphant yet again.
Fucking annoying. Shout out to Last Lap, homies, but very aggravating.
They had our guy Nico Scott, who's played for Cookies in the past, on their squad.
Nico?
Yep.
That's not fair. Nico. That's like the Liberty.
It's a good, very good team. But I'm bringing it up because they had sandwiches from DeFonte's, but they were small. There were segments of sandwiches, which was really perfect, and they were so delicious. I gotta say.
You guys can't use knives and forks. It's too challenging. You need.
We're infants.
Apparently, playing a child's game, eating child's food.
Yeah, it was great.
Did everyone take naps at 1 p.m.?
Well, we wept and then peed our
Mm,
diapers.
mm. Classic sandwich eating behavior. But the delightful thing about, and also yes, shout out to Luch and Mobadenga Kings. Fucking last lap, insane. We got to bar them from the next tournament. We got to split up that super team. Maybe expansion. You can draft a player off of last lap.
Here's a question for you. Why is the Knicks hero, Jalen Brunson, hanging around a Wawa eating hoagies and calling them hoagies?
Jalen Brunson's a false flag. You know how I stand on this. I'm not a Jeter respect guy at all. Jalen Brunson taking less money, whatever. He's all. I mean, to his credit, he's like, I'm already rich. I don't care. I respect that, but I love him. I don't think he's that much better than Stephon Marbury yet. I think he will be. Again, he got bounced by the Pacers, so I'm just like,
But he's using the word hoagie. This is your New York City hero.
he went to school in
Hoagie.
Philly.
Who's using hoagie?
Yo, there's Hoagie, there's Grinder, there's Hero, there's
Sub.
Sub. There's the $5 footlong pacifier for all those babies out there. Wah.
Where's the popularity
Wah,
of
wah.
Grinder? Wawa, wawa. Grinder. Where's Grinder coming from?
Grinder. When I was in Providence,
And I'm
I
not
think
just
they said
talking about that
Grindr.
app on your phone, Andrew.
Grinder. That's New England, right? Isn't that Boston?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't eat these things. I don't eat these things.
I've never lived anywhere where Grinder was a phrase that anyone used. Hoagie is definitely Philadelphia. Hero is definitely New York City.
Yeah.
Sub, upstate New York, you get a mix of hero and sub.
Mm-hmm. What if your boy RFK came out on stage at a MAGA rally to Foo Fighters and he was carrying a 6-foot hero? Would Dave Grohl be as mad?
I still, when you say RFK, I'm thinking you're saying like RXK in my mind. So at first I was thinking about Neff with a hero, and then I was thinking about, oh no, it's RFK with a hero. Yeah, that totally makes more sense. It's RFK with a 6-foot hero.
Pilled,
yeah,
man. Well, so if the Sixers move, will you be New Jersey pilled? Like the Sixers brand since the Ben Simmons drama was like, we're the best fans, we understand the assignment, and we only like players who understand the assignment. And now we're talking about moving the team to New Jersey? Yo. What's happening?
Yeah, I gotta say, it's true. The vilification of Simmons was in some ways like the high point for Sixers fans. Like, we did it. We were willing to forgive him if he'd come back, but then he didn't, so we're mad at him and whatever. But there was also part of it was that they felt as if he was abandoning them and also mad at them, and he was disappointing them. There was this weird sort of auto-fiction that was created by the Sixers fan towards Ben Simmons, in which he was scared to face them, that they were part of this entire situation. And it wasn't just that he resented and hated Doc Rivers and refused to play for him.
I mean, it could be a little of both.
Well, I mean,
because they went at his sister and all that stuff.
That was Al Horford.
Oh, my bad. Well, they went out after Al Horford. Maybe Ben Simmons like, don't go after Al Horford's sister.
Not my man Al. Don't do it. But the irony was, this came a year after Sixers fans went after Joel Embiid, Al Horford, and someone else. Maybe it was like Danny Green. I forget. Oh, Tobias Harris. Like, he was just the one that left.
Brett Brown.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, but to your main point is, after this sort of victory lap of drubbing of Ben Simmons out of town, I don't think the Camden part is about the fans, though. But it doesn't look good for the fans. If that makes sense.
I don't think
Because
them
this is
not
really just this is about a stadium, and this is about the ownership wanting them to build a downtown stadium with taxpayer money, I'm sure, and using Camden as a threat. That like, oh, okay, you won't build us a stadium and arena downtown. We're going to move them across the river.
Yeah.
And then everyone's going to have to drive over there, and it won't even technically be a Philadelphia team. It's going to be the Jersey Swamp Dragons.
And this is the annoying thing about professional sports, right? Because the teams take identities of the city, and the ownership of the teams want them to think that they're a part of the organization. But it really comes down to leases, and it comes down to like contracts, and them moving Philly, possibly the rumor, I don't think it's going to happen, to New Jersey is like flies in the face of culture, right? It's like, oh, we're the sixth man. Like to your point, I don't think them not showing up or decent tickets being empty during Knicks playoffs games is necessarily the fans' problem. It's the organization's problem.
Yeah, but that's not what really happened though either though. Just be fair, Quo. Stop spreading your lies. Like I love you, but I love you, but I just don't love your nonsense and lies. I just don't love your mistruths and your fibbing.
I just bought a
to
condo.
Clarify.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk Russian hoopers. No, to clarify, it was that Knicks fans were willing to spend more money on the secondary market and were glomming up Sixers seats and going down.
Weird. They wanted it more. They wanted.
I just mean they weren't empty seats. That's all I'm saying. They were not empty seats that no one wanted. That were the Knicks fans had more money. It's like going to Mexico City. Your money goes a lot longer when you're buying tickets in Philadelphia. You're used to the prices up here.
It's
go an hour
Sixers
that
fans
way.
being like, hey, I don't want to
Money's
go to this
different.
game. I'd rather make my money reselling them on the second market to whoever was willing to pay more. Maybe the opposing team's fans take the tickets. I want the money, not the experience.
You made this point during the playoffs. I let you get away with it because you were correct. And then I went on doing my research. I went on StubHub, and there were just as many tickets available in the secondary market in New York City as there were there.
But Knicks fans bought them, right?
Yeah, but because there's
so
many more Knicks fans, and they have so much more money.
You're like, well, they wanted it more. I don't know.
No,
Anyway.
I just mean Knicks fans were selling their tickets too. That's all I'm saying.
And I delight in the story of them moving to New Jersey every time I hear a Sixers fan trying to be like, no, actually, Sixers fans, it wasn't their fault. I'm like, they're going to move to what state? New Jersey? If it was Seattle, I'd be like, wow, the Sonics were incredible. Ray Allen's the best player of all time. I get it. But New Jersey, oh my gosh, let's go. Bring back Sly the Fox.
Do you think that and this is a concern about Camden, which I don't think is going to happen. It feels like just a threat.
Yeah, I agree.
Do the Knicks and Mets and Yankees have a different relationship with the fans of New York than the Jets and the Giants because those two franchises actually do play in Jersey? Does it make a difference? I think it might. I'm kind of interested in the idea.
It does. I think it does because it kind of broadens. It only does because it broadens the audience to two states, and the fact that it is in New Jersey. Like if they were in New York but called the New Jersey Giants, I think it would be a different conversation. But yeah, I think it does hurt the brand. And I also think having two New York teams hurts each brand too. It's complicated. They make tons of money. It doesn't matter. But it's being diluted in more ways than one.
I think even if you're not going to a Knicks game, and let's say the Rangers as an example, because I don't go to Rangers games, but there are times when, say, you're on the subway and you just see a whole bunch of people with like Rangers stuff on, or you're around the Garden and it's a Rangers game and you see the Rangers fans flooding in the arena. There is a visibility, just literally a visibility. But people are going to Knicks games. You're on the subway. Oh, it's Knicks fans. They're going to the game. The Knicks fans got out. They're all coming back downtown in their Knicks tees and their Knicks shirts and their Cookies Hoops merch. Jets and Giants, you don't really see that. And maybe part of their fan base is also in Jersey anyway, but I don't really see them as much.
I ooh, I think they got basketball and baseball there because of tailgating. You're just talking about public transportation, right? Like on the subways, you won't see that many Jets and
I
Giants
just mean the
people. You
streets
can't get
too.
there.
I just mean the streets as well.
I guess so. It depends because on the streets in the Bronx after a Yankees game, you see more Yankees jerseys up there. And by the time you get to 14th Street, they've kind of dissipated, right?
Definitely less for sure.
And on Sundays, you see a lot of Jets and Giants jerseys.
I mean, football's popularity. I know you've given up on football.
Had
I'm
to.
out on football. The popularity is always striking because, you know, even living in like Brooklyn, whatever, you go by and you're like, oh, every single bar is showing football.
It's incredible. I love it.
All of them. Like there's a few, okay, this is like more of a cool guy bar or this is whatever. But like 90% of bars are just have football on TV.
Like Sunday's almost a holiday. Like I had to give it up just because like I couldn't manage the hours in my week to watch football. It just was too much. I was watching on Sunday and then Sunday night and Monday night. And then they introduced Thursday night games and they're trying to add more games where they're eventually getting to every night. And I was so into it that I was like, I don't have enough time to like sleep and email people back. I'm watching the game. It's an amazing product. I love it.
I'm just shocked by how popular it remains, despite what we know about whether it's CTE or despite its, highly conservative ownership or, the fallout from what happened with Kaepernick.
Workers' rights.
Its popularity, all these issues, the popularity just doesn't seem to flag in terms of people like actively watching it.
The
Not
game
just
is
being
incredible.
fans of not being fans of the sport. I don't know if how many people are like, combing through things during the week, but people go and like watch the games at bars. It's just such a social component to it.
Also, gambling, fantasy.
I think gambling is what has held it aloft. They had those factors that could have led to a decline, but daily fantasy sports and then legalized gambling, I think, really buoyed it after that.
It's incredible. I love it. It is a deeply American game. It's violent, and we get to argue about like morality and cop stuff. Like that was a catch. That was not a catch. His feet were in. His feet were out. That's not a pass. That was a forward pass. Like it's a perfect concoction of what this country enjoys doing, which is arguing about rules, gambling, and violence. I love it.
Yeah, it's just the spirit of cops distilled into a game.
We do that with basketball, right?
Lots of penalties, lots of rules, but also head trauma.
I mean, basketball, the head trauma thing, that is a workers' ownership issue that the ownership won and the workers lost. But like I like boxing and like extreme like combat sports, so like that's tough too. It's tough. It's a tough way to make a living. The CTE is wild, especially with Antonio Brown kind of dissolving the way he is, but that's also what makes it fascinating, right? Like if the stakes are so high, I'm at one point horrified and another point fascinated.
Yeah, I saw the clip of Antonio Brown and another guy talking like, do we have CTE? And like, I don't know.
Yep.
It took about 30 seconds to realize these guys seemingly both have brain damage.
And we can kind of pinpoint the moment Antonio Brown got it with like a elbow to his head and his personality changed. How do we deal with mental illness in this country? Like we kind of laugh and mock Antonio Brown for being a bad person, weirdo, any of these things. I don't know if he's whole as a person, but then who is, right? Would you trust him to order the crew pizza? Would you trust him to show up for your party, a surprise party, on time? I don't know. But he was at some point the greatest wide receiver I've ever seen. But yeah, this kind of discussion is what makes the NFL interesting, not the other way around. You're going to bring me back to the NFL.
Well, right. There was always this idea that wide receivers were flamboyant, and that's like the personality traits, whether it's him or
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice was kind of like the Ray Allen in that way.
I thought he was pretty flamboyant. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You mean like in a
big personalities,
Randy Moss way.
Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Michael Irvin,
Ocho Cinco.
Right. I mean, because again, I have not Ocho Cinco. I don't really watch football, so my references are all from back in the day.
Right. Sure.
That's like the glamour personality position.
Tyreek Hill. Oof. Yeah.
Does basketball have a glamour position? Is it shooting guard? Is it small forward?
It's probably closest to shooting guard, right? Just because of Michael Jordan and what you're asked to do. But not really. Basketball, these stats, these accomplishments are totally diluted by the actions of the players, of the 9 other players on the court. So it's hard to have flamboyance. People accuse Caitlin Clark of being flamboyant, right? Not even close to NFL stuff.
It's funny because the idea of the New York City point guard was always viewed as like they also had to be a showman. That was like part of this cliche. And when we've seen
Tinsley.
When they talk about the New York City point guard, that was like the KD documentary. It's like you had to be a showman. You had to, be an entertainer. You're there, and I'm like, but also like the traditional floor leader point guard is like the most boring position in sports. Like I think of Eric Snow. And like I get the whole idea of the New York City point guard, like Rod Strickland, crazy handle, Kyrie, even though he's from Jersey,
right?
Like the Philadelphia 76ers. But it's like, oh, great handle, no look passes, Stephon Marbury, like they're just exciting showmen. But also that position barely exists in the NBA at this point. But the traditional point guard, the Mark Jackson, is like the most boring. Although I got to say, going back and watching Mark Jackson highlights.
Yeah, he had flair. He was just
way more exciting than we thought. We just think of him as the dude who backed people down.
I mean, he did the shimmy, right? Like he
was fun.
Yeah.
But I can't really think of a maybe shooting guard, like the dunker, the high flying 6'6", 6'7" guy who can jump out of the building.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the wide receiver, maybe.
You just get humbled too fast in the game of basketball. Wide receivers can hide on plays and like make the big home run moment. But I think like you got to run back on defense. You miss a shot or two. Like the moment doesn't really exist that long in a basketball game. If you're Vince Carter and you throw down an insane in-game dunk, you're posturing, and then all of a sudden you're on your man on defense, and you probably get burned.
I mean, I guess this is just bringing me back to like Anthony Edwards. We're like, very good player, but he's all personality and dunk highlights. Good scorer, but his reputation is much higher. But he's also kind of one of a kind.
Yeah.
In the current NBA, there isn't really another player that you would say. John Morant.
Back it up. Yeah. I mean,
there aren't too many guys who are stars who also are incredible dunkers who also have that personality. It's just he is not a trend. He's a one.
I mean, would there be more ants if after a dunk or breaking someone's ankles, you stop the game and you can celebrate for 2 minutes? Because that's what happens in football, right? You go into the end zone, it's on you now. The game is stopped. Time has been paused.
I mean, same thing with soccer too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, go through your celebration. It's like, nah, you got to get back defense. Like, the point guard's got the ball already.
No, I agree. Like, they're going back to their direction.
Yeah.
The only time you get to do it is if there's a foul is called. Then you can like
Yeah.
parade around a little bit. But yeah, if you score, the ball's right back in bounds, and you're now they got a 5-on-4 because you're down there wuffing.
Taking a cell phone out of the padding. Yeah.
I mean, to
Shaking pom
me,
poms. Yeah.
I think some of the iconic dunking of the past, the taunting was a big part of it. And they just don't really
Sean
let you get
Kemp?
away with the taunting anymore. The Sean Kemp point, incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Dunking on like Chris Gatling or whoever it was, and I don't know, and then like the 2-arm point, great stuff.
Scottie Pippen pushing down Patrick Ewing after a dunk, incredible,
And
right?
then straddling him and walking over him,
Incredible,
fantastic.
I love it. I love it. And
Shaq shoving Dudley into the
Knicks
stands.
are just catching all these L's, man. Someone showed Michael Jordan on Twitter. Someone showed Michael Jordan's dunk on Ewing in the playoffs. It's like, oh, the greatest. No one even comes close. And I'm like, don't show this footage too much because those games were tense and those games were coin flips. And Jordan got past Ewing and the Knicks every time, but like not by much. Legend would say he breezed through in his 6 seasons to 6 chips. The Knicks were formidable, man. There was bad blood. There were fights.
The Knicks were really, really good. I mean, that no era Knicks team, elite defense, Pat Riley.
Like we were
great team. And also Patrick Ewing, all-time great. I know people have dropped him down the list of all-time greats, and you've got whatever. Okay, Olajuwon's ahead of him, and Robinson. He'll just keep falling as more great players come along. Like Wemby's already ahead of Ewing. I'm just making this up, but Ewing, all-time great. It is what it is.
I have Ewing not far behind Kobe and Olajuwon. I'm shopping for a Ewing rookie card. I don't want to talk about basketball cards because it's third rail, but I'm shopping for a PSA 8 or 9. They're only a couple $100, which says more about the PSA 8 or 9. If you get a PSA 10, it's like $1,000 or $2. But that's it for Patrick fucking Ewing, man.
I think part of the issue with Ewing was that by the time people were really able to watch basketball on TV outside of the New York area, or just the generation who was super into basketball, his knees were already fucked up.
So fucked. Still good, like, so fucked.
Good player, but didn't have that same kind of athleticism and the like imposing violence that he had at Georgetown and then early in his career. I mean, and I don't really remember that stuff either, particularly. You know, it's a long time ago. Yeah. We're talking about 86. You know, it's like fucking forever ago. But if you go back and you watch his clips from high school,
Channel 9,
early highlights with the Knicks, his athleticism is shocking. I mean, his ability to run and jump, he's leaping out of the building and he's as big as a house. Most people in that era were skinny. Ewing he's built like a modern player, and he moves like a Mare Stoudemire or something like that.
And as his body depreciated, he becomes a better and better shooter. This dude was a wonderful fucking athlete, man. He was awesome. He got hurt at these tragic moments. Like there's this artist who makes like these pictures of NBA players and photoshops everything out of it, Paul Pfeiffer. And there's a picture of Ewing, and it's just like, that's a heartbreaker, man. It's like when he retired, and I always talk about this, when he retired and was like, I'm sorry I couldn't give you a championship. It was like the beginning of He Got Game. I was like, I can't handle this, man. He's like, I wanted to give you guys a chip so bad, and I had it. And I'm sorry. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, without turning this into a conversation about the Sixers, my hope is that Embiid doesn't have that same fate.
Dude, where don't even. It's gonna happen.
You know, this incredible career, slowed by injuries, doesn't get a title. It pushes him further down the list of guys who, you know, aren't that he's not as good as those guys, even though we know he is, but he doesn't have the hardware to back it up. He doesn't have the postseason runs. People will say, well, Giannis was better than him. It's not true, but at the end of the day, if he doesn't win a title, we know how this works.
The Rochester Supersonics are going to draft him, and you're going to see your guy, Joel Embiid, in a Sonics jersey. And then the Magic.
Yep. I mean, and hopefully Rochester can get that title that's, you know, evaded Joel for so long, like the 48 Royals or whatever.
Kings. Yeah. Yo, what's up with your boy Jamal Murray getting a max contract?
I mean, I don't know. I keep thinking of the phrase like cheaper to keeper.
You
Although
can't pay.
that doesn't really work, but
I
it
hate
sort
that.
of is. It's like
That's a gross.
it's like you got
phrase.
you. It's like
Yeah.
no, I know, but it's like hey, you gotta pay her because you gotta pay Jamal Murray the money because that's actually more cost efficient than like letting him walk.
You have to sign him, and I hate that idea too. It's like, well, we had no choice but to give him a max contract, but you kind of got to, even though he's injured and is coming off of
Like,
kind of embarrassing Team Canada run. You paid MPJ. If you don't pay Jamal Murray, then what are you doing? Like this, you got to stick to trust the process in Denver. You got to stick to your guy, unless you can replace him with like, I don't know, a better player who's cheaper. He's your guy. You've already put this into
that's
motion.
it. Well, also, they clearly anticipated this too, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they let KCP walk, that was a key player for them. And
Bruce Brown also.
Same with Bruce Brown. Two guys who were tailor fit to work with Jokic, 3-and-D guys. And they came to the conclusion that those are more replaceable than a Jamal Murray. And they're probably right. I don't think Jamal Murray is a unique prototype in the league. There's a lot of guys who are like hyper skilled combo guards who can score. The deal is that they're expensive.
Mm-hmm. And they're not available. Donovan Mitchell is not available.
I mean, Tyrese Maxey not available. Like they're hard to get. And if you want one, you have to give up a lot of draft assets, and then you're still going to pay them that much money. So it's like, what's the difference between Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell? Well, Mitchell might be better, but is he 5 first-round picks better and making the same money better?
Yeah.
Probably not. End of the day, Jamal Murray was the guy who spent his whole career there. You won a title with him. He hit huge shots. Mm-hmm. He was very good last year. Bad in the postseason, but good in the regular season.
Yeah.
He's just kind of streaky, and you're like, all right,
always
you
hurt.
helped us.
Always hurt.
He's hurt a lot. He's streaky. He had a hot run, and they won a title. It's like, I mean, I'm not a huge Jamal Murray fan. I don't think it's some egregious miscarriage of justice that he's never been to an All-Star game. I think he's a pretty mediocre defender. I think he's really talented, but generally doesn't take great shots. But when he's on fire, he's kind of unstoppable.
Yeah, video game stuff. We've watched it. Like, I almost think they have to pay him just with the idea of aura or magic. It's like, we've seen him dominate a couple of times in an inexplicable way, sort of like Giannis hitting those free throws in the finals. It's like, this is just how you pay players. If we didn't pay players like that, we'd be looking at a more efficient, cold-hearted league, and we don't want a more efficient, cold-hearted league. We want a more emotional, inefficient league. It's more fun.
And also, I think if you're Denver, you're like, look, every year of Jokic's prime, we have a chance to win.
Yep.
He's that good.
Yeah.
Got knocked out this year. Doesn't mean he won't win a title next year.
Yeah.
And there's no conceivable way to replace Jamal Murray and say we'll have a better chance of winning a title, because you can't do that. You don't have that player. And whether it's an overpay or not, whether it locks you into this core, hey, that's what they're going with. Those two guys are not your problem at the end of the day. The problem is Michael Porter Jr. The problem may be not replacing the role players and some of these young guys on their team, like Brown or whoever, not being able to step up into those like slots that have been vacated. Mm-hmm. But it's probably not going to be Murray and Jokic that's going to end up costing you a chance at winning another title.
And they're also rostering one of the smartest players in the NBA in Ryan Brown. There's something about him. He should be a player coach.
You know what else is always really smart? That's right. Perfect podcast.
Another one.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I I love cookies. I love cookies.